Hello, everyone. This is Dylan, the designer, developer, everything of, of Mythion card game, except the world. I just wanted to make a quick video today that would kind of explain. Oh, how come it's not zooming in? Uh-oh. Well, let's fix that right off the bat. There we go. Ah, perfect. Okay, but now I'm gone, so I need to fix that real quick. There I am. Okay, and we'll turn that off. I don't know why that wasn't working. All right, so I'm going to start the video over. Hello, everyone. This is Dylan, the designer, developer, and pretty much everything on this card game, the Mythion, the card game, except the world, of course. That was done by Jason Davis, my father. I wanted to make a quick video today because I wanted to explain how best to sort of take your new starter decks, or at least two of your decks if you bought the Make Playing Cards version, and sort of go over how I intended for the decks to be put together. So, in other card game TCGs, CCGs, what have you, these would be called a deck tech, right? But in this game, given that it's kind of following the model of a sort of like a Fantasy Flight Games living card game rather than a TCG with randomized pack opening elements, that's just the deck building is pretty locked in at this point. I intend sometime in this year, sometime in 2023, to set out or put out some supplemental product that allows people to have more deck building options. But for now, this is kind of the bog standard baseline deck building. So to get started, we need to find a couple of cards. Because of course, when you buy these cards, they don't come pre-built into the decks, right? That's not something that we built into the pipeline for the development of the game. First, it's kind of expensive to have it organized like that, and second, the deck lists are actually available on the website, but might as well get them here too. Okay, so we're looking for this one, and we're looking for this one, and we're looking for this one, and we're looking for this one. And the reason why I'm doing this on Tabletop Simulator is simply because it's easier to read. It's kind of hard to make videos from the perspective of for a card game. It's kind of don't know what I'm moving there. It's kind of hard to make videos that clearly show everything. You know, like with these, I can zoom in, I can explain things. So while the images are not the best on Tabletop Simulator, I think it's a little bit easier for me to kind of zoom around and show things. But obviously, the first thing that you're going to want to organize when you get your starter decks, whether you downloaded them from our website by signing up, or whether you got them through Tabletop Simulator like I'm doing, because you can play the 2 starter decks for free on Tabletop Simulator, or if you bought the Make Playing Cards deck, these are the 2 starter decks you get. If you bought the Make Playing Cards version, obviously you have 2 more decks, the Masha Carton deck and the York Butler deck, and then I will also put out a deck guide, as it were, for them as well. But for now, we're going to start with these 2. So first character is Gavin. So I'm going to move Gavin over here so that he's kind of alone. And Gavin has his accompanying alter ego Galzu, right? And so these two cards are going to be played together. As a matter of fact, normally when I play Mythion, I actually stack them on top of each other like this. Doesn't look super great in Tabletop Simulator, but that's normally how I do it. Because once as if you've watched my Learn to Play video, you'll see that once you've flipped Gavin, he becomes Galzu, right? So another way you could do this is something like, okay, I've succeeded in my ego condition, or no, excuse me, I've succeeded in deprogramming negative emotions, so I will now become Galzu, right? But anyway, so these are these are not two separate characters with two separate decks. This is one character who has two egos. And the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find these ponder cards. And these are important. So why are these ponder cards important? Because of the resource system in Mythion, you have these cards that are specifically only used to produce resources. It's called pondering. So as you ponder, you gain more ability to play cards from your hand or draw cards or what have you, right? So that's what these cards represent, and every deck will come with 3 of them. So you can go ahead and separate and give AI Nima her 3 ponder cards, and you can give Gavin his 3, because like I said, every deck will come with 3 ponder cards. And these are just kind of like a baseline resource card. They don't do anything else. They have no other function. All they do is produce resources, which is why there's an X in the snake area. Okay. And next we have probably the next best way to go about doing this is searching for cards which read Gavin. Now you can see in the text box beneath the art, there's a box that says Gavin and then something, right? So in this circumstance, this is Gavin intangible. And tangible means that it is a physical object that exists in the world. So the hem and the sleeve are both tangible, as is the 5th dimensional design. This card is a little bit strange, and I need to keep it on the side, and I'll explain why a little bit later. Fabric, bodice. And then as you can see here, Becoming Human says AI Nima. So you know that this card is actually going to belong to AI Nima. But I don't want to get too deep in the weeds with that. Here's another example. The monster is a Gavin memory, right? So this isn't a tangible. This is a memory. This is something in Gavin's past that he remembers. Also, I should note here too that the symbols are also slightly different, and it's mostly the triangle symbol that's different from what you're probably familiar with. But these are, I went through a lot of iterated designs, and the deck lists haven't really changed. So, and yeah, I believe all the cards are the same. It's just a couple of final touches that I did before I sent them off to the final printer. Okay, it's looking like there's a lot of AI Nima cards in this at the top, but we will go over it. Okay, so and then here's another. No, we'll cover that in a minute. I want to find all of the Gavin cards first, because I know there's more. But I mean, it's kind of a good idea anyway, as you're going through this whole process, to just sort of organize cards that you have multiple copies of anyway. There's not really a reason not to, because it's just easier deck building process, right? Let's go through this deck just real quick, just to make sure. Okay, yeah. So these are all important. Don't know what that message is. My apologies. All right. We'll cover these toward the end. So we've got his 4 cards we've got the 3 monster cards. We've got one moment. Let me that's fine. That'll be the last message I get. I'm willing to bet. We've got these 4 cards. Okay, never mind. And we've got these 4 cards. Okay, cool. So this is the most of the makeup of the Gavin deck. Move these over here. So Gavin's deck is made up of Gavin, character, memory, effect, and tangible. Not only that, but Gavin also is running some generic cards. So he has generic effects. So here's a memory effect, a generic effect, and generic is the type, or I suppose like the super type if we want to talk about magic type terms. The effect is the subtype, right? So I guess another way you could put it is generic is like the class. This is the class of card it is. This is the not the species, but the family, right? So it's the family and then the species. So it belongs to the generic family of cards, and it belongs to the effect species. And then you have your negative ideations. And negative ideations are important. You need to run 8 per deck, depending on what your identity says. But like you can't run 5 negative ideations, even though Gavin's encumbrance is 5 negative ideations. Every starter deck comes with 8, and this number will fluctuate further down the line, I believe. It's something I'm going to have to play with. But we know that Gavin runs Anguish, and he runs, I believe, 3 Loneliness. And that'll get us to 6. And then he runs 2 Paranoia. So that's 8 total. And then I believe it goes like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you know, so for example, this says fear, but this card actually, so Gavin technically runs 9 negative ideations, but this one actually doesn't go into his deck, and we'll explain why that is the case a little bit later. But it does say Gavin negative ideation. This one says generic negative ideation. So cards share the similar, family and species. Yeah, generic negative ideation. I believe he only runs the one of Gavin, and this is a very special card that we'll talk about later. But for now, we know that he runs these 8. I just realized my camera's kind of in the way there. Let's move me down here. He runs these 8 negative ideations. And a deck should round out to, I believe it's 40 or 33 cards, because it's 30 normal cards and negative ideations plus 3 ponder cards. I could end up being wrong about that, though. I've made so many versions of this game over the last couple of months that I have forgotten a few things. But in any case, so these 2 cards we're going to put up here for now. All right, so now that we have kind of the Gavin and various stuff like that out of the way, we're going to move on to the organization of the deck materials. So the first things first is we know that he runs 3 of the monster, because that's a Gavin only card, and he's the only character named Gavin. And we know that he runs all of the Gavin cards, right? So we're going to put all of those in the deck and see where we're at. So that brings us to 5 total cards thus far. And then we have the Heather Sims, which is Gavin's sister. That's why she shares the same last name. Um, and she will go in there as well. And then both the starting characters, Gavin and AI Nima, run Search for Meaning. So we know that at least one Search for Meaning goes in each deck. And then we have Download. And I believe Gavin runs 3 download. It's either Gavin runs 3 download or AI Nima plays with 3 download. I can't remember 100% certain. Gavin runs 3 Tranquility, which brings him to 14. And he runs... Are there 2 Cheers over here? I believe so. Okay, good. So Cheers... This is kind of a unique card too that we'll talk about a little bit later, but we're going to put in the deck as well. I don't know what that sound is outside. My apologies. Let's look through the deck real quick. Okay, so there's Cheers, Tranquility, Download, Search for Meaning, Heather Sims, Mountainous Memory, and the Monster. Group. And that brings us to 16 cards. Then he runs Dyads Appraise, which so does AI Nima. Both Gavin and AI Nima run this card. They run 1 of each. When this card is drawn, place it immediately into the theater. This is a pretty unique card. It doesn't have a cost. It doesn't pitch for anything. It's just it's an encounter, as it were. Okay, that brings us to 17. And then let's drop the negative ideations. That brings us to 25. And then let's drop these cards, group, these 4, which brings us to 29. And then we'll drop the 3 Ponder cards, and that'll bring us to 32. Now, you might be thinking, Dylan, you said it was 33 cards. Well, there's 1 special card that doesn't go into Gavin's opening main deck, and that's 5th Dimensional Design. So Gavin is unique in that he is the only deck that starts with less than the total number of cards. So Gavin's deck, 33. Well, 32. Because this card, a 5th Dimensional Design, says when this card is intuited, manifested in Gavin's theater. If this card is manifested before all 4 designs are assembled, shuffle it back into the World Tree deck and intuit 1. So this is one of the key aspects of the Gavin deck. Gavin interacts with the World Tree deck really frequently. And so he has 2 cards, these 2 here, 5th Dimensional Design and Fear, that get shuffled into the 3rd deck, the shared deck between the 2 players. So these 2 will go with these, Bookworm and Enceladus, and let's spread them out. Bookworm, Unity, Our Heart, and Enceladus. So let's group them all up real quick. Group. And then we'll spread them back out again. Spread. And Gavin is the only character who does this. So if you're not playing with Gavin, you do not shuffle these 2 cards into the World Tree deck. Only when you play as Gavin. These all stay the same though. Because normally in Mythion, the World Tree deck is 10 cards, not 12. And this is meant to symbolize something pretty important in the story. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So with the 32 cards now assembled, we have the entire Gavin deck experience. Now we need to go over his equipment cards. Excuse me. And you can kind of organize these however you please. I usually just put them off to the side. I put like my deck over here. I put Gavin maybe in the middle, or toward me, or up like directly in the middle, sandwiched in between the deck and the characters. or in these two cards. But it's up to you. You can also put these here if you want. Um, you know, just as long as it's clear what you're doing and why. All right, so that's Gavin's deck out of the way, but let's explain these cards real quick. So Gavin's sketchbook. So this is an object of power. And an object of power means that Gavin starts with it, or any character that has an object of power starts with this in play. And it says, let me move this here. It says Gavin Sims object of power. So you know that this is Gavin's, and it doesn't go into anyone else. It reads, destroy this object, search your subliminal for one design element and manifest it, then shuffle. That means that so the deck in Mythion is called the subliminal. So this is a very strong card for Gavin. As it effectively says, search your deck for 1/4 of your win condition. Alchemy reads similarly. So one time you can pay 0 to draw 2 cards or intuit 2 cards. And that's obviously really important to Gavin. Intuiting is a separate form of draw. Intuit is to draw from the World Tree deck, but we can cover that. I've also covered that in other videos. But anyway, so that is the entirety of Gavin's deck. Is these pieces here, with the additional pieces up in the World Tree deck, wherever that may be. Here. So if you want, you're more than welcome. As a matter of fact, I think it is recommended to take the pieces of Gavin's deck, because these are only going to be played if you play with Gavin. Oh, I'm so sorry. And just keep them with the Gavin deck, because anytime you're going to play a game of Mythion and one of you or your opponent are going to play with the World Tree, you just take these cards and put them in the World Tree deck, right? And if it's like Gavin versus Gavin, then you got to put all 4 of them in there. That'd be a pretty fun match to watch. Okay, so that out of the way, let's move on to the AI Nima deck. Now, if you're sitting there with your big pile of cards that you just cut out of your sheet, or your NPC cards that showed up, your Make Playing Cards website cards, it's pretty safe to say that anything that is not labeled Gavin or is not in the Gavin assembled deck, and anything that is not one of these cards, is an AI Nima card, right? So it's not particularly difficult to figure out from here how to build the deck, but we'll do it anyway. So let's move this up here, and let's grab... I also want to do it anyway because I want to make sure I got the numbers right. So we're going to grab all of these cards and separate them so that it's relatively obvious what they are. And then I think we'll take her negative ideations. Actually, let's group these, flip that, and move it out of the way. And then let's take this guy and let's spread it. Okay. So, I don't know why I'm so tired today. I have been working a lot recently. All right, so we have AI Nima Teacher and we have AI Nima Learner. And again, this one's not quite so clear. Like with Gavin, it's pretty obvious who is the normal one and who is the ascended one, right? They're pretty starkly different. The AI Nima, however, not quite so. It's a shot from behind. It's not as clear, but know that if the card says ego on it, it's going to be your starting identity, right? Every character starts at their ego, and then they can transition to their ego death. And that's no different with AI Nima. So this is the first identity. This is the second identity. So you can lay the first identity on top of the second one and move that down here. You know why I think I'm yawning so much? Whenever I talk a lot, nonstop, I think I tend to have like weird breathing issues. Like it's like, not that I'm like short of breath or anything or that I feel bad. It's just I tend to yawn. It's like I talk until excuse me. It's like I talk until I run out of oxygen. But anyway, so again, we have the three ponders. We have two tranquilities, which is different from Gavin. Normally, Gavin has three and she only has two. But she has three download, whereas I believe Gavin only has two download. I believe. We can look though. We can confirm this. We have the technology. Nope, Gavin has three actually. Oh, okay. Huh. Interesting. Maybe I must have changed that number. You can fudge that around too if you want. I mean, if you really, really wanted to, you could play Gavin with one more cheers and one less download. And give the... Well, you couldn't actually give the download to AI Nima because the max number of cards that a deck can have is 3. At least of positive cards. Negative cards is a different story. You can have more than 3. None of the starter decks do have more than 3, but it is possible. Okay, so we have empathy and we have sympathy. We know these two different cards come together. So that makes 5 because there was 3 sympathy and 2 empathy. This is get AI Nima, an AI Nima effect. You're kind of doing the same thing as you did before. That's 3, so that brings us to 8. A memory of birth and an AI Nima effect. So we know that these also go with AI Nima. And then we have becoming human. I don't know why I can't bring them together. There we go. Becoming human is the next set. That brings us to 13. Then we have the 2 cheers, and each deck runs 2. We have Dyad's Praise, just like in the Gavin deck. That brings us to 16. So now we're getting close. We have the Search for Meaning. Both decks use 1. Download times 3, 20. Tranquility, 22. Then we'll group these ponder together, and that's going to bring us to 25. And then you guessed it, when we group the negative ideation cards together and put those on, we reach 33. So let's spread that deck out again. So the AI Nima deck is... Oops. Why are you not doing how I want you to do it? Maybe I need to grab the bottom card. Okay, thank you. So we're going to grab these. We're going to grab these. These. Oh no. This. The 2 cheers. Put them right there. The 3 becoming humans. The 2 memory of births. The 3 a lesson learns. The 3 sympathies. And the 2 empathies. So, AI Nima's deck is Empathy X2, Sympathy X3, Dyad's Praise X1, and X meaning times, so there's 1 Dyad's Praise. X3, a lesson learned, so 3 a lesson learned. X1, search for meaning. X3, becoming human. X3, download. X3, tranquility. X2, cheers. X2, a memory of birth. X3, ponder. And then we have 2 identity crisis, 1 ambition, 2 prejudice, 1 loneliness, and 2 jealousy. And that makes up the entirety of the AI Nima deck. So if you need to, take a screenshot, for example, You're welcome to. There you go. So now we will group all of these cards together, and then I will go over her objects of power. Whoop. Isn't Tabletop Simulator just grand? It's great for demonstrations. Okay, so let's grab AI Nemo's objects of power. So we have AI Nemo's Tesseract. It says right on the card, AI Nemo, object of power. Search your subliminal and discard its zone for 1 a lesson learned card and shuffle it into the World Tree deck. Shuffle your subliminal, then into it 3. Pretty strong card. And then we have Alchemy. And Alchemy is like the generic object of power. Every starting deck hero, every starter hero has Alchemy. Well, I should say each, but then also the 2 other starter decks, or not starter decks, but the other 2 set 1 decks, Detective Magic Carton and York Butler, both have Alchemy as well, because it's the generic object of power. And yeah, so that's effectively it. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's go and look at the Gavin deck one more time. I'm actually going to do the same thing because I didn't realize how handy that was actually going to be. So we're going to flip the deck over, and then we're going to spread. Look at that. Beautiful. So just like AI Nemo, we have the 3 ponders. Just generic resource. Then we have the 5 tangibles. Well, in this case, it's 4 because one of them stays out of the deck. But 4 tangibles. Cover those in a little bit. Then we have the Diatzipres. And then we have his memories. His memory package, as it were. So the monster. And Mountainous Memory, 2X. I don't know why these got shuffled together so strangely. And I liked the look of AI Nemo's more, so I'm going to try and make it look like that one again. Okay, so again, 4 tangible objects: sleeve, hem, fabric, bodice. These are the 4 that go into Gavin's deck. 5th dimensional design starts in the World Tree deck when you start the game. You shuffle it in. Same with Fear. Then we have 3 download. So 3x download, 3x ponder, 1, 2, 3, 3x tranquility, 1x Diatzipres, 2x Heather Sims, 2x cheers, 1x search for meaning, 2x mountainous memory, and 3x the monster. And that is the totality of Gavin's deck cards. Then we move to the negative ideations. 2 paranoia, 3 loneliness, 2 paranoia, 3 loneliness, and 3 anguish. So 3, 6, 8. And that gets us to the all-important 8. And once you have these cards organized together, you can simply shuffle them up, mix in your negative ideations for that character, give it a good shuffle, and you're ready to play with your 32 card deck. Okay, so now let's go to the World Tree deck. The World Tree deck is pretty simple. Every card that has this background, that being the kind of bright tree, is a World Tree deck card, and that is it. So these cards will only ever go together. There's only 2 of each card. No, never mind. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. There's 3 of each card except for Enceladus. Enceladus says that. But otherwise, there are 3 of each card. So 3 Unity, 3 Bookworm, 3 Our Heart, and 1 Enceladus. And the reason for that is I wanted this particular World Tree deck for the beginning of the game, as I'm getting going on the design, I wanted it to be 10 cards. That number will likely increase over time, but as of now, it's 10. So that is the World Tree deck, and that is used by both players. And with that, I think it's time that I can wrap up. So just remember that if it says Gavin, it belongs to the Gavin deck. If it says Nima, or AI Nima, excuse me, it belongs to the AI Nima deck. And if you're playing with Gavin, you need to take these two cards at the beginning of every game, and you need to shuffle them into the World Tree deck. Right? And once you have them shuffled in the World Tree deck, no more worries. You have the correct cards in there. So let's get them back out. But whenever you're not playing Mythion, you can go ahead and just take these two cards out and keep them with Gavin. That way, if you ever, play with something else, another character or another deck or whatever, these aren't just sitting in the World Tree deck, because they don't really do anything unless somebody's playing as Gavin. So they shouldn't be there unless Gavin is in the game. Same goes for AI Nima, though. Everything that says AI Nima on it belongs to the AI Nima deck. Each deck gets Ponder, and what I imagine is going to be the hardest thing for people to keep track of is which negative ideations go in which deck. And to that I say, go to the website. It tells you there. Or watch this video again, or take notes now. Because while it doesn't matter too much, like if you end up playing one of Jealousy in Gavin instead of AI Nima, probably not that big of a deal. It'll be fine. But Jealousy doesn't go to Gavin's deck. It doesn't fit him emotionally. So the first thing you can do is make note that you're supposed to have 8 per deck, right? And if you have 8 per deck, you can probably put together how to separate the two, because you'll have 16 total. Well, 17 if you count Fear, but that only ever goes into the World Tree deck. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say. That I think we can call it a video there. If you have any questions, you're welcome to leave them in the comments below. And until next time, I hope you enjoy playing the game, and I hope you enjoy learning how to sleeve up your new Mythion decks. So thank you for watching, and see you next time.